Hello and welcome into Fantasy Focus Football. It is Thursday, January 19th. Today's show is presented by Geico. So Geico, see all the ways that you could save. The usual crew, Field, Stephania, Mike, and I hanging out. We're going to be talking about some football. It's been a whole week since I've seen your faces. I feel like it's been a month, if I'm honest. Like this week has felt really long, just being able to breathe for a minute. Not for you?
I saw you.
Well, you and I did see each other briefly.
Did you see Mike as well?
I did see Mike.
Did you see Mike and Daniel at the same place?
I did.
So the three of you were all the same place in the same time.
I wasn't invited to their party, to be clear.
Gotcha.
I just stumbled upon them.
Yeah.
Here's my question.
They tried to avoid eye contact.
But that's not even... Well,
I didn't let that happen.
Did you guys know that my Wi-Fi does work at home? Like I have access to the internet. So like when you guys all post a picture together out and about socially, and I'm sitting there, like working on projections and writing,
Well, that's because you're so in demand.
Reports.
We have time to go out. But
Let me tell you what I was doing at about 6:30 on Tuesday night when you guys were out there, just munching on wings. I was changing diapers.
Yeah.
A diaper.
That's
I
fair.
don't do multiple at a time.
We knew that. We didn't want to bother
you guys were considerate in that regard.
I invited you out one time and you said no, so I'm like, all right.
Well, never done it again.
Once,
one time.
Yeah, that reminds me of the time that I offered somebody a trade in fantasy. They said no, so I have never offered someone a trade in fantasy ever.
That's the way
again.
trading works, right?
Wait, by the way, are we going to put together fake trades later on in the show?
Yes.
We
are.
Might be doing that.
It's going to be super fun. So we're at the offseason. We're at, not technically the offseason, but
fantasy.
We're in the fantasy offseason. So what we've decided is that there are going to be weeks where we have so much news to dive into that we will not think about what we're going to talk about. It's going to be, hey, wherever, like so-and-so signs with this team and that team and there's a trade and all that stuff, right? There are going to be other weeks where it's like, we don't really have that much news. So we're going to create topics. And that's kind of fun in some way. It takes the pressure off you because it's not like, listen, if I make up a trade, it doesn't happen. I didn't say that it was going to happen. I just made this trade up for fun. And I don't know. There's something about the hypothetical that has always been fun to discuss in sports.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I'm gonna tweet this out. Per Field Yates, ESPN, player X will be traded to Team Y.
Yeah. Can you link to my TikTok account rather than my Twitter because I'm trying to blow that up. Okay. So it's got it. Field. I think it's underscore. I should probably
don't even know.
Underscore Yates.
Yeah, clearly you've been working hard at it.
We're going to talk about some fake trades that maybe we would want to see happen. We're going to talk about some players that might be on the move this offseason. Our good friend Liz Loza is going to stop by as well and talk about some props that pop for the divisional round of the playoffs. But first, Stephania Bell, I would feel like we're not doing you the service that you deserve if we don't let you be able to just say some nice things about your San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
You don't have anything nice to say, do you?
How you feeling about the Brock Purdy experience, Stephania?
I can't say enough about this kid. I mean, the moment's never too big. He started off a little, slow.
Yeah.
First half was not his best half of football thus far. But here's what's amazing about him. It's like short memory. Don't let it get to you. Come back, make the adjustments, do what you need to do. I think the thing that impresses me the most is how he stays so present, even if he's being chased, figures out how to make something happen. I just like, how much can you say? And I think it's everybody around him. It's the way they're working as a team. Seeing obviously Christian McCaffrey, and they could control Christian McCaffrey's utilization because they got Elijah Mitchell back, which was fun to see. They've got Debo obviously out there doing Debo things. They just have and obviously beyond them, Juwan Jennings. I mean, they've got so many little pieces that can help them. And I just love watching Kyle Shanahan's creativity, and the defense is the defense.
My favorite thing about Brock Purdy is just everything, just the whole story,
the whole
literally
package?
all of it. Like I realize he's doesn't always make the best decisions. He's had some throws and whatnot, but like for the kid to be a 7th rounder and to step in, like you said, the moment's never too big for him to be able to step in this spot and to be able to continue to lead this team. We were talking about it that night when we didn't invite Field to Wings. And Mike, but we were just talking about how good of a job they've done to be able to help insulate him, to make sure that they're not setting him out there. They're using the players around him as well.
Yeah, on one hand, it's like, okay, Mr. Irrelevant, 7th round rookie quarterback. There's no way they have a chance to keep winning in the playoffs and potentially beat Dallas, who's a really good team at home this week, then go into perhaps Philadelphia and beat them, and then go to play, the Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, whoever it is in the Super Bowl. But then you're like, Kyle Shanahan, You know, this guy continues to get the most out of every quarterback, whether it's Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, no matter who it is.
We'll see.
He
On
makes
Lance,
them look.
yeah, I feel like Lance is like an unwritten story.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
honestly,
Yeah.
the story may never be written in San Francisco.
Story to be, I have some thoughts on that. But I would say this, the whole team has bought into this system. And I think because they understand it so well, people like George Kittle and all these other leaders. Brandon Ayuk is having a phenomenal season and doesn't even have to be the primary guy. You know, he's not the star, but he is making huge plays for Purdy when he needs it. Like, just watching how they all rally around each other and the vibe in the locker room, how happy is Christian McCaffrey, by the way?
Pretty
Like,
pumped.
like where he left
God,
to where
I mean,
he is. I mean,
could not
talk about
be
a turnaround for
it's been
incredible.
So there are a lot of lessons that I think can be learned right now. In the playoffs, the 49ers are a shining example of it, but there are others. The New York Giants are one of them as well. We have a couple of aliens in this league at quarterback where the minute you acquire them, I don't care how bad you were before that, you are a walking playoff contender. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, the first three that come to mind for me right now that, like, you could ship them to any team in the NFL and I would immediately regard them as a playoff contender. We also have a ton of other quarterbacks that in the right circumstances can be super effective and help you win a bunch of games. And too often what we do is we put quarterbacks that aren't in that category of Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow, and just, whatever. All for not bust, not worth the crap, trade them away, send them to the XFL, like, blah. Daniel Jones, great example. By the way, Daniel Jones played his butt off this past weekend. Daniel Jones was left for dead this past offseason. Brian Daboll comes in, stabilizes him with no wide receivers. It's a remarkable coaching job.
It really is.
Brock Purdy, I don't know what he looks like if he's playing for somebody else right now.
Yeah.
If you put Brock Purdy on the Saints this year because they needed a quarterback, I don't know that we're talking about Brock Purdy this way.
Even Brock Purdy has sort of acknowledged that in the way that he talks about, basically his job is just to come in and execute this offense and be a part of the system.
Yeah.
And I give him a lot of credit for that. I mean, it's a system that where he and his style is built for success. I agree.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So the big takeaway from there is, like, I'm not saying that talent doesn't matter. It unequivocally matters. But we are in the middle of the coaching cycle right now, and there are some players who I think our perception has dramatically altered this past season. Keep this in mind right now when you start to make wholesale evaluations on guys next year and say, well, that guy was a bum this past year. There's no way, right? Like, I think probably there's no better example.
Trevor Lawrence.
Yep, sure. He's a good example of things getting better.
Better. But that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
people were like, oh, is Trevor Lawrence, is he, he's not delivering like what we expected when he came out of Clemson.
Sure.
You switch from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson
how
and
much
look
better
at
it
him
gets.
flourishing and peaking at the right time, I would add.
And it seems like Mike had a player on the tip of his tongue.
Yeah,
Yes.
Russell Wilson is the one going the other direction, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
think there are two right now and one's old, one's young. Russell Wilson,
Zach Wilson.
and I think Zach Wilson.
No,
I might just be out.
he's a backup next year. Yeah.
I think Mac Jones had one of the best rookie seasons ever, and then goes to the most dysfunctional offensive coordinator situation in years. And
Also
Russell
hurt.
Wilson, Mac Jones, but both of them, yes, but still, like both played really well. Russell was hurt too during 2021, but the point is, we know Russ is good.
Yeah.
Can we get him back to where he needs to be? I would argue this offseason that Russell Wilson maybe he's overpaid, and maybe the contract will not age perfectly. But I think you can win a lot of football games with Russell Wilson going forward if you do some things around him correctly. That's my big takeaway from Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah, huge dub for the 49ers. Congratulations, Stephania, for getting that victory. Mike, you also
I
the
did
Eagles
a lot
also
to get it.
Yeah, the
So
Eagles
I
didn't win
appreciate
this
it.
week.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
right.
sorry.
I know.
But you did
It
advance.
was a great
to the,
year, though, right?
Oh,
right.
Yeah, that's weird. They didn't.
Oh,
they
you
didn't have
had
to
the
play.
best record.
That's right. They didn't have to play.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Well,
spot.
you better hope your quarterback looks better after the week off than he did
wow.
in week 18.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
You know, one game in the last month. I think he'll hopefully.
Here's
rest
my
it up.
only concern for Jalen Hurts is he struggled, and I didn't know how much of that was sort of the rust of not being, when you get in a rhythm, that's a real thing. And how much of it was he's still hurting. And they were very clear about that afterwards. He was very sore after that game. I don't expect him to be 100%, but I think he'll be better than what he was. You add another 2 weeks of recovery, you're going to be better.
Yeah, that was a weird game. I mean, they were just going down the field. They kept getting to the red zone and just not scoring and ended up a really close game. It feels like it could have been 42-7.
It could have been.
Couldn't fit. And if he could run, he just chose not to run in that game.
And I think that was a plan. That's why I think that I think that's the thing, that if they're more comfortable with him taking contact, he comes back. He looks like a different player.
I think they will be.
Yeah.
This is it. 3 more games.
We're all excited to see what this game is going to look like. And in case you wanted to watch this game in person, just know it's the best time of year with football playoffs being upon us. Basketball and hockey are also in full swing, and that means nothing beats seeing your favorite team live. So make up for lost time and go out and enjoy a game. Vivid Seats, the official ticketing partner of ESPN, is offering you $10 off your first $100 ticket purchase with code FFF. That's code FFF. Download the app or visit vividseats.com today. Vivid Seats, life happens live. All right, Field Yates, let's talk about some players that might be on the move. I'm going to hand the microphone proverbially. What's the
That's not it.
Yes.
What's
you're the Ivy League.
Proverbially?
Yes.
Yeah, you need an I.
Proverbial.
How about you just
I mean,
let
if
him
you want it to be
use little words?
Hey, I wanted to try a big word today, all right?
Yeah.
Well, you swing and a miss. Anyway.
All right, so
Strike
I'm going to
one.
run through 4 players and just give you an update on where things stand contractually. I won't get into the weeds too far, but I will just give people the general sense of what would have to happen for this player to not return to his current team. Let's begin with Aaron Rodgers. If you watch television, if you watch ESPN, we talk about it every hour. So I'm sure you're already aware of the fact that Aaron Rodgers might not return to the Packers. He has contemplated retirement in previous off seasons. Last year, though, we signed a 3-year, $150 million extension. So Aaron Rodgers still under contract for a ton of money this offseason. Here's why this is trickier than every other situation, is that if Aaron Rodgers is traded, and obviously if he's traded, he's going to recoup some serious value in terms of draft capital. But if Aaron Rodgers is traded, he is going to take on a monumental cap charge for the Green Bay Packers because they have pushed money off in previous years into future years. That would accelerate onto the salary cap for this year, which is why even if Aaron Rodgers really wants to get traded and Green Bay does get some really compelling offers, it's not as obvious as other trades would be. So just keep that in mind. I think there's a chance that Aaron Rodgers is traded this offseason. I think there's a chance that Aaron Rodgers retires this offseason. Of course, there's a chance that Aaron Rodgers plays for the Packers next year, and that would be very clearly best for the well-being of their franchise. But just know that this is not as obvious and easy as the next quarterback I'll mention.
I just want to ask a real quick question. I'm not going to not holding you to this, but if you just had to put a percentage, would you say they're each 33%, or do you feel like there's just the Field Yates?
I think he's going to play. I think he's going to play. So I think retirement's least likely. I think a return to the Packers is most likely, and I think a trade is 25% chance.
Okay.
Just because if he says to them, "I don't want to be here anymore," and he's made some comments, and just watch the Pat McAfee show. He goes on there every Tuesday. As you guys know, we love Pat and the entire crew, and they get the best sound out of Aaron, obviously. So he's been very transparent there, and it sounds like he is not slamming the door on playing for a different franchise.
Field Yates reports 75% chance Aaron Rodgers returns to the Packers.
Some numbers.
TikTok again, on TikTok.
All right, good.
Derek Carr. This one's way easier.
Yeah.
As far as trades are concerned. So Derek Carr, who's 31 now, turns 32 in March. On the 3rd day after the Super Bowl, a huge chunk of Derek Carr's 2023 base salary of $42 million, and I'm talking $40 million of that becomes guaranteed. So the Raiders are motivated to trade Derek Carr before that date, because if he's on their roster the 3rd day after the Super Bowl,
they're on the hook.
Then they're on the hook for $40 million. And when you've already cast your die and said he's not going to be our guy going forward, you are not going to pay him $40 million to watch Jarrett Stidham or somebody else take all the snaps. So this one will get done sooner rather than later. That being said, I mentioned how if the Packers trade or cut Aaron Rodgers, it's a huge cap problem for them. For the Raiders, nope, not that way. The contract is structured so differently that if they cut him, they take on a $3 million dead cap charge.
Oh, wow.
Which for a $225 million salary cap to have 1.25% dead money, totally fine to rid yourself of what would be an obviously very awkward quarterback situation. And I think he is a tradable contract. I know Derek Carr right now feels like like rotten eggs, right? But we're talking about Derek Carr in a very different light after last season. We were talking about him in a different light coming into this season. Heck, early in the year when the Raiders kept losing close games, we weren't sitting there saying Derek Carr stinks now. We were just saying that, hey, they've gotten unlucky. They've kept themselves in games. They got to find ways to finish. Tom Brady, next one here, 45, as we all know in terms of age. Brady is a free agent right now. Tom Brady has a clause in his contract that prevents him from being franchise tagged. So if Tom Brady wants to leave Tampa Bay, he has the ability to do so because he cannot be tagged and he can choose his destination. This is a team that would be in a very precarious spot, salary cap wise, if Tom Brady leaves. But that's the cost of doing business. You sign Tom Brady, you got him for 3 years, you want a ring. If there's a period of pain after that, you'd sign up for that 100 times out of 100.
Is he the only guy with that clause in his contract field?
There are a handful of guys around the league that have the no tag clause. They just prefer it. It's when you're a top player that would just prefer the...
Totally.
You just never want to have the option for the team to control your fate, even if it's for just one more year. Final one's DeAndre Hopkins, who's now 30. He, of course, missed 6 games due to suspension, then 2 games due to injury this past year. D-Hop still has multiple years left on his contract. He is tradable because... the amount, it's 2 years left. There's about $40 million that an inheriting team would take on. 2 years, $20 million per year seems reasonable for DeAndre Hopkins. I think he probably would be motivated for a new deal. The question is how amenable a team would be to that. This is not, to me, anywhere close to the same situation as A.J. Brown, wanting to be traded this past offseason. Even Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill were different scenarios in my estimation. They were at the peak of their powers more so than DeAndre Hopkins is. But if you're Arizona, you have the 3rd pick in the draft. You have a new GM in Monty Austinfort. You have a to-be-determined head coach. You've got a Kyler Murray ACL recovery currently taking place. As Monty Austinfort referred to in his process, or in his opening press conference, like, the coach who's coming here ain't coming here because his vision is about just wins and losses in 2023, right? It's about the bigger picture because it might be a long year next year for Arizona with a lot of changes already having taken place and more on the horizon.
It feels like they have a lot of aging players or players who it feels like they could blow up their team, like fire sale from the Arizona Cardinals.
Couldn't agree anymore. I mean, they've already, JJ Watt's already retired, but like,
look at Zach Ertz coming off injury. You've got AJ Green, who's not young as a wide receiver. What do they do with Robbie Anderson? Like, there's a lot.
There's a lot there that they're going to have to. They're going to have to. Basically, they're going to have to wipe the deck clean. They're not going to win next year. They're in a division that has 2 playoff teams again this year, and the Rams should be much better next year. If I'm Arizona, I'm playing the long game.
So I want to ask this question, and I'll come back to DeAndre Hopkins. But with the 2 quarterbacks, really quickly, you talked about how Tom Brady doesn't have he has a no franchise tag clause.
Yeah.
Do either of the quarterbacks have a no trade clause?
Derek Carr does, yes. I believe Aaron Rodgers does as well. And what a no trade clause means for those, I'm sure people get it. But like basically,
I'm a dummy. Please tell me what
trade
it
clause
means.
means that if, let's just say, I'm just making this up here, the Raiders and the Commanders agree to a deal to send Derek Carr to DC, and Derek Carr says, "I don't want to go," then they can't trade him there. He would have to agree to a trade. So let's say Derek Carr is amenable to a trade to New Orleans. I'm just making that up again. Then they could agree to a trade, and Derek Carr could say, got it. We see this a lot in baseball. A lot of baseball players have this on their list, and it's like you hear about these like 8-team lists they have of like, I don't want to be traded. Usually it's like, baseball market matters so much more, right? I mean, like the Pittsburgh Pirates. Jimmy G, yeah, and we've seen it more and more in recent years with quarterbacks as not exactly a throw-in, but teams are a bit more amenable to it because when you're talking about the contract extension with a player, you're not thinking about trading him, right? Yeah. You're thinking about having him as your franchise centerpiece for 5 years. Yep. So anyways, Derek Carr redid his deal last year. We're not even a year removed from his extension. Obviously, circumstances changed dramatically.
So Carr, by the way, this will be like Stafford a few years ago where it happened quick, right?
Yes.
So we're going to, whether it's a trade or release, we're going to know this one right around the Super Bowl. So,
Mike, you are so on it. It's totally correct. And I personally think there will be a Derek Carr trade. I think there's going to be a market for him. But we'll see.
I want to know, do you think Derek Carr can ever get back to that MVP level that he was playing at a couple of years ago before he got hurt?
I think probably not because that was pre-Mahomes too. Like keep in mind that was pre-Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. Mike, I'll let you take it from here, but like I think you win a lot of games with Derek Carr.
Yeah, I think you can too. I think you win 10, 11, 12 games. It depends on the supporting cast around him. I think at that point, This is when I got blocked by Derek Carr. When he was probably a little overrated when he was viewed as kind of like a top 3 quarterback.
Now we're hearing about what Mike said about Derek Carr on
Yeah,
Twitter.
now it all makes sense.
Yeah.
I was just answering the people out there who were telling me
It's
how
just
dumb I
facts,
was.
Derek. That's all I'm saying.
It's facts only, right? But then he became very underrated after that because they were like, oh, he looks like an MVP, and then he wasn't at that level, and people are like, kind of what you were just talking about, right? Oh, wait, he's not a superstar?
Yeah.
Well, then he's garbage, right? Like, that's kind of what happens. So people just overreact. And then he's been kind of underrated now for a few years, and I agree with you. If he goes to a good situation, good defense, good guys around him, you can win games with him.
And by the way,
make the
just
playoffs.
one more example of how things change and perception changes. Soon enough, it might be the Jared Goff trade.
Yeah.
Right? For 2 years, it's been the Matthew Stafford trade. Now Jared Goff played his tail off this past year. The Lions got 2 first-round picks, including what's going to be the 6th overall pick this year. Like, people could not get rid of Jared Goff fast enough in Los Angeles after his final season there. And now, like Lions fan, and I'm in this group chat with Daniel and a bunch of his Michigan buddies, and it's like they all are like, no way would I take, I mean, a lot of them are like, no way would I take a quarterback in the first round this year. No way. Jared Goff was way too good to bypass the opportunity to draft a star at wide receiver or defensive back or whatever it might be for them this year.
Yeah, that trade probably worked out for both sides. I mean, the Rams have no regrets. They
Right.
got their
They got a
ring.
Super Bowl,
They got
right?
They got a Super
Lombardi,
Bowl.
right? Like,
But it's
they're happy
interesting
to-
because the Lions, everybody was really sad with Matthew Stafford departure. I have to think that they feel pretty good because it worked out better than expected
absolutely.
with Jared Goff.
100%. And we all got to vicariously live through Matthew Stafford and be excited
Yeah,
for a guy we
good call.
watched for 10 years be able to
Yeah.
win a Super Bowl. Like,
Look at
those are-
that, because you guys are just nice fans.
well, of
course,
you try to be.
best.
You try to be. But Field, let's end this. We talked about, and we'll kind of move this on to some of the trades. You talked about DeAndre Hopkins. Is there a spot that you feel like, before the show we were talking about quarterbacks that could really use wide receivers just to help bolster who they are? Is there a place where you think DeAndre Hopkins could go that would help?
So do you want to get right into the trades?
I
The
think we do.
trade/signings. Let's call this trades/signings because some of these
Yeah.
are free agents changing teams that
Some
could
of us didn't
potentially
follow the rules
blow.
totally.
Well,
that's
Because
okay.
we're like
I was one of
free
those people
agents.
too.
Me too.
Blow
I know.
up fantasy football.
He's the contract expert.
So let's start here. DeAndre Hopkins to New England, a team that I think could use a bona fide star receiver. They've got some good receivers, but not necessarily a dominant wide receiver. So maybe something in the range of a 2023 third-round pick. I know people are going to say a third-round pick only for DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah,
Big
he's
salary,
30
right?
years old with a lot of money owed to him. Like, again, Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams are peak of their powers right now. Like, D-Hop, awesome player. But I think if you were to draft wide receivers right now, just like in a wide receiver only draft, Tyreek and Devontae are probably going in the top 5, and there's no two ways about it. I think D-Hop's probably closer to, maybe 10 or 11?
Is this a
I've-
one-year deal?
yeah,
or like just
I
this
have a-
year or long-term? Because he's 30.
I have
Yeah, I would say
questions.
long term. Yeah.
Because so here's where I'll ask you, because you're much more expert in this. How much say does a player have in it? Because it seems to me DeAndre Hopkins wants to go somewhere where he has a chance to win.
Yeah.
Houston became a huge problem for him. And I think he went to Arizona thinking they had a chance and things look pretty good. And he knows he's getting older. New England doesn't feel like a place where they're going to win immediately.
I mean, it's weird. Doesn't it feel like this was the crappiest year ever for the Patriots?
Yes.
Yeah. And
They
they
were-
almost made the playoffs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking about this some recently. It's like everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and they went 8-9. There are other teams they might build a statue for Dan Campbell for going 9-8.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're that far off personally. I mean,
Okay.
they almost made the playoffs, and they I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but like I would think that with some smart moves this offseason, they could be right back in the playoffs.
I mean, obviously, if coaching down, head coach is there. You have
Yeah.
that. The defense is always good under Bill Belichick. It's just
Yeah.
something that's not talked about enough is how they continue. You look at the personnel defensively, and you're just like average maybe. And then they're like,
And
they'll
they're-
allowing under 2 touchdowns a game every year, right? So you're not worried about that. It really comes, and look, Hopkins helps with the skill positions. The offensive line's usually solid. It comes down to Mac Jones, really. I mean, you need an offensive play caller. We know they're going to fix that. Is Mac Jones the real deal? That and that's going to be it for Hopkins, right? I mean, if he believes in Mac Jones, he'll be comfortable with that. Maybe they can contend. But if I'm him and I want a path to the Super Bowl, you'd probably go maybe to the NFC right now. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, even if New England gets a lot better.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think probably he does not have a no trade clause, so he's going to go where they trade him. Relationships matter. Monty Ossenfort, who their new GM, 14 years with the Patriots, so certainly there is a working
interesting.
rapport there, which helps.
Yep.
And I just think this
That's
is
the kind of inside baseball
There we go.
need,
Yeah.
That's
right?
good stuff right there.
there was a time to help. Like again, a year ago, Mac Jones was finished second in NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
Like they were 10-7, made the playoffs, and that was when they hadn't even taken the reins off of him. Right? They were running the ball like crazy. Damian Harris scored all the touchdowns. So I think there is a chance a really good player is. I know he's a talented player. I think there's a really good player that with some pieces in place at the receiver spot, and then obviously a far better offensive plan, which that's not his job to decide. That's the coaching staff to decide, which certainly seems like the Patriots are going to make sure they get that squared away this offseason. This could be a much better team.
So you're buying on Mac Jones. So Bailey Zappi for a second-round pick to who? Where's he going?
Coming up later on the show. To the Eagles. No. So anyways, DeAndre Hopkins of the Patriots would be my first one.
All right. That's
We're
fun.
going to talk a former Patriots quarterback. We're going to trade Stephania. Who are we going to talk
Well,
about?
so Jimmy Garoppolo can't be traded because he's going to be a free agent.
Yeah.
Correct.
So the 49ers aren't going to be able to command much.
Nothing.
Nothing.
If anything,
Could
right?
they franchise
But
tag
what
him
I
too?
I'm
believe
trying-
Jimmy's deal includes a no tag clause as well, but you can't tag.
Doesn't.
Too much
Yeah,
money
that's
for
not
them to have
happening.
on
he's
their
just
salary.
So here's really I had to put something on paper, so I was talking about I went Jimmy Garoppolo to Jets, but here's where I really struggled. Let me give you this scenario because it's really more complicated than that. 49ers they have this wealth, this abundance at the quarterback position, right? But surprisingly, because Brock Purdy's turned out to be Brock Purdy. Jimmy Garoppolo was injured. Obviously, that's how Brock Purdy got a start, but he'll come back, and we saw that he was recovered from his shoulder surgery. And Trey Lance, to me, is like, this is the how many $1 million question, because I think the 49ers probably want to move on from Trey Lance. That is the feeling I get, which is weird and crazy. And they invested all these first-round picks. But and Trey Lance just had a second surgery to remove the hardware after the ankle injury that he had. So we really haven't gotten to see much of Trey Lance, but he obviously worked there. He started developing. But if you're the 49ers, you now have all these parts. But trading Trey Lance would mean admitting that you overpaid.
Yep.
That you made a mistake. Are you sure you want to do that right now? Are you going to be able to recap the value that you think you deserve if nobody has seen him coming off the injury? And so I want Field to respond to this, but this, to me, when I'm thinking about what happens here, that's all part of the equation. The reason I was looking at the Jets as possible landing spot for Jimmy G
That makes all the sense
is
in the
he's a
world.
proven entity. Robert Saleh, obviously the relationship
100%.
there,
Yep.
and he walks into good, wide receiver strength, running game strength. It
Totally
feels
agree.
like
Great
it's
defense.
a good, right, great defense. The only question I have now that we've talked about this Derek Carr thing is, are the Jets going to be like, we want to move on Derek Carr because of 49, like the Jimmy G thing that doesn't happen, right? As long as the 49ers are still playing.
Yeah.
So the timing, is that going to create a problem?
Yeah, so the Jimmy G cannot sign elsewhere until March 17th this year. So the Jets could and by the way, Derek Carr can't officially be traded until March 17th, but a deal can be agreed to. This is exactly what happened with Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff, happened with Alex Smith when he got traded to the Commanders several years ago. So deals can be agreed to even if they aren't official. So Jimmy G, though, makes all the sense in the world for the Jets. I think way more so than Derek Carr. I think market matters, right? I think Jimmy G is built to handle the Big Apple, which it's a different beast. It's just a different beast than any other market in the entire country. Every single move that you make is being covered, from on the field stuff to where you went to dinner to where your dog gets groomed at in New York City. Like, all that stuff matters.
And
So,
he's certainly been, just because of the unfortunate set of circumstances that he had year in and year out with getting hurt and just the hammer coming down on him, I feel like he's proven, and what he went through this year, he would be on a side field doing rehab while the 49ers are getting ready to go, and it was so awkward and weird, and he handled it like the ultimate pro, and it paid off in spades, and that's why they did what they did, and it allowed him the opportunity to basically showcase his talent for somebody else.
totally. All the Jimmy G stuff I agree with. I think Trey Lance is so fascinating. I think that the decision could be made very easy for you over the next month, right? If you win the Super Bowl, there's no
just
debate.
correct. Say that.
That's why
That softens the blow.
But
You could do whatever. You
Yes.
could trade Trey Lance for me, and they'd be
And they'd
people
be
would
okay.
That's
care,
why I
'cause
say.
you won a
So
Super
what
Bowl.
happens
Yep.
if they get to the championship game
and lose?
and then I don't think they're.
You know,
It's
Stefania,
Probably lost to the Eagles.
honestly,
Yeah.
That's already known.
I still think fans are on board with it. I really do, because I think we all would love to see Trey Lance succeed. This is a very short term. Like our focus is so short term in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I know it was such a small sample size, both this year and last. But in the very tiny sample size that we saw from Trey Lance, he didn't pop anywhere close to the way that Brock Purdy popped pretty much the moment he took over that job. And I know that's not fair to Trey. So if they win big, they win the Super Bowl, I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I think an interesting potential trading partner for Trey Lance. How about the Tennessee Titans?
I was just going to say, because when I was looking this over last night, that was my thought, is that they need a quarterback who's mobile. That one of the things that has limited the Titans is that they have a guy who, is fairly much a statue. Ryan Tannehill is not, how
about this?
He can be serviceable, but I could see that.
Take it a step further. Who did the Titans just hire
as
their
their director of player personnel from the Niners?
Yeah,
just
Ray
became
Carthon.
the GM.
Yep.
And who posted after that happened a fingers crossed?
Trey Lance with the 3 fingers crossed emojis. So,
really?
Anyways, that would be a fun hypothetical one as well. We'll keep it moving here in the interest of time, but that could be. Like, these are the kind of things that if they happen a few months from now, wouldn't totally stun me.
Yeah, well, now that Jimmy Garoppolo has been traded to the Jets, I'm not sure that I want to make the trade that I suggested because Elijah Moore might be useful
This
there.
is a good one. This is a good one, I think.
But I actually had Elijah Moore staying in town, but switching teams. We all know everything that went down between him and the Jets. It felt like there was some bad blood between them. I like the idea of Elijah Moore being able to go to a Daniel Jones-led offense that is starved for wide receivers, where you were just looking for talent. And maybe Richie James or Isaiah Hodgins is going to come on and keep being a guy, but they've been rolling out the ghost to Kenny Galladay. I don't know if we're going to see Sterling Shepard again. Like,
they'll have Wan'Dale Robinson coming back, but yeah.
Okay, well, we didn't really see a whole lot of Wan'Dale Robinson either. So the idea of being able to get a guy with a high pedigree, a high draft pick to be able to come over, stays in town. I just like the idea of being able to make him, and that opens up a lot, honestly, for Garrett Moore on the other side, which I was also excited about with this trade idea.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson.
Sorry, Garrett Wilson, not Garrett Moore.
I'm with you. I think he'll probably go somewhere. He obviously wasn't happy, was a healthy scratch for a game, then came back and was basically a backup / the slot guy. So I would not be surprised if he was moved in the offseason. It's just what the Giants have done at receiver is just exceptional. They're just splitting. It's a 3-man committee with Hodgins, who, by the way, he was with the Bills. Brian Dable, of course, was there.
3
and
years.
he was just the end of the bench guy, never played. And now he looks really good. He looks like they found something there. Darius Slayton's there, obviously Richie James you mentioned, but I think they'll probably invest in some skill guys this offseason.
Yeah.
And they finally have salary cap space, which has been not a thing. Now, a ton of that will go to Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, but the Giants can be flexible this offseason.
I was trying to find a disgruntled wide receiver to send to the Giants, and it was like Michael Thomas, I don't know, Brandon Cooks, I'm not sure. Elijah Moore's real young, so I guess I'll go with him instead.
Mike, give us the one we have. People must be waiting for this.
Yeah, this is the big one right here. This one's fun. All right, so I'm trading. All right, here it is at Field Yates. Retweet. The Packers agree to trade. TikTok. Agree to trade quarterback Aaron Rodgers to the Las Vegas Raiders in exchange for Derek Carr, Darren Waller, and some draft pick compensation. We'll figure that out later. But that's it. And picks to be.
I think. Later. So first of all, we all this would literally
about.
this first would move off the axis, right?
Rodgers and Adams reunited.
We don't even need to discuss why it makes sense for the Raiders, right?
Yeah.
Of course, you get Aaron bleeping Rodgers and Devontae Adams. They get reunited, and the Raiders are. I know we said this last year, but they're much more of a threat in the AFC West now, right? I think the Packers would probably say like you can ship Derek Carr elsewhere or just cut him, just because they have Jordan Love, right?
Yeah, they could, but that's a lot less fun. So that's where we're going with it. And really that comes down to, do they really believe in Jordan Love? And remember, they just signed Aaron Rodgers to a long-term extension last offseason, not with the idea that he'd be there 1 year. And that tells me at some point they would move on from Jordan Love. And that could happen this offseason. It probably will happen if Aaron Rodgers stays put. I just can't imagine that he rides this out. So
they have to decide on the 5th-year option for Jordan Love.
And that's not going to happen right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. But they don't have a choice. And it's like, if Aaron Rodgers might be gone and you think Jordan Love is good, $20 million or 20 is like 22, 23 is like an exceptional amount of money for a guy as a backup. But if Jordan Love is good and he's your starter, it's like, that's a bargain.
It's a bargain, right.
I can't imagine they view him as that, because why would you have done that with Rodgers last year?
Because he was back-to-back MVP.
Yeah.
I know that, but if he's that good, that you're going to give him $20 million for a guy that's barely played.
There's such a human aspect to it.
I hear you, but
it's
that's
so
tough.
hard. Like, back-to-back MVPs, he has taken the franchise to heights that are just so good. And, Aaron Rodgers is Packers football right now, right? And by the way, you just traded away Devontae Adams. Trading away Devontae Adams and then moving on from Aaron Rodgers might literally have led to Armageddon in the great city of Green Bay.
Well, no matter what happens, I feel like, and Lions fans went through this when we had Eddie Murray and Jason Hansen for a long time back-to-back, which is just like Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers.
Pretty similar.
But you had one guy at a position for basically 40 years, it feels like, or two guys at a position for 40 years. No matter what happens, it's just going to be a huge just upturn for this.
These are all fake fun trades. It's super fun. And the Packers, by the way, would be able to still be competitive. They'd have plenty of pieces. The defense has got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
They'd find a way.
And this hypothetical assumes that they're not buying on Love, right? So maybe he gets shipped somewhere else. They trade for Carr, slide him in there. They bring in Waller, who was already speculated to the Packers last offseason. This doesn't matter too much, but Rob Tonyan, Mercedes Lewis, both free agents as well. They didn't
use their tight ends.
No, they don't.
Vegas,
if you bring in Waller, though, you have Christian Watson.
No, I'm talking about Raiders. That. I could see them moving on from Waller.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely a possibility this offseason. But again, the Packers have some free agents, including Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard as well, so they could use a pass catcher. And obviously, the chemistry is there with Carr and Waller, so perhaps he's tossed in as part of a deal like this. So anyway, I could see Waller going to the Packers anyway, even if Rodgers stays put. So something.
I like this idea of Derek Carr and Darren Waller go to the Packers, and then the Packers actually trade Derek Carr.
Ooh,
Fields Yates.
Keep getting more picks.
Three-way trade.
I actually don't know if three-way trades are allowed in the NFL, so it might have to be two separate transactions.
Okay. That never happens. Yeah,
I've never seen it happen, but I don't know if that's because it just is unlikely or if it's literally illegal.
If the Packers were going to trade Derek Carr to another team, after they acquired him, was there a team that maybe he could go to?
How about the Atlanta Falcons? The Atlanta Falcons to me seem like
Are they quitting on Ritter already?
I think the problem with the Falcons and Desmond Ritter is that did he have a single touchdown pass? He had one as his 4 starts, right?
To be fair, Kyle Pitts wasn't allowed to catch the ball.
Sure, that's fair. But they had no Kyle Pitts at that point, and the offense was much more run heavy. I just wondered that for the past 2 years, if we've learned one thing from Arthur Smith, it's that he has no interest in being bad. He wants to win, and he wants to win right now, right? And this is the offseason. The Falcons are projected to have the second most salary cap space in the entire NFL. Only the Bears, who are going to have all the resources, are going to have more. They're both teams to keep an eye on that could make big splashes this offseason. I think the Bears, though, probably I think they're smart enough to realize that they're just getting started here, right? The people keep saying trade DeAndre Hopkins to the Bears. I'm like, why? Why would you? Your entire team is 24 and younger. Why would you add a 30-year-old wide receiver to a roster that he's got probably 2-3 good years left maximum, right? Yeah. Justin Fields might have 15 more years.
And they also just traded the 32nd pick for Chase Claypool.
Yeah,
so anyway,
they'll be fine. So anyways, the Falcons, though, are a team that I do think wants to win. And I think Derek Carr, who I believe still has good football in him. And I think the quarterback is going to be a spot where the Falcons clearly look to upgrade this offseason.
Yeah.
And just don't discount this one is what I would say.
Yeah, here's why I like this one. Kyle Pitts mania back on.
Let's go.
Let's go. We're back in on Kyle Pitts for sure.
Derek Carr has never been, obviously, he himself has never been an elite fantasy quarterback. He has helped others be elite fantasy players, right? We've seen great Darren Waller years. We've seen great Hunter Renfrow years. We've seen a great Devontae Adams 15 games with Derek Carr. So don't be surprised if in a world in which this happens, you would say Kyle Pitts and Drake London stock way up.
Absolutely.
In this circumstance.
That's we've talked about this since week 4 of last season. Get us a pocket quarterback in Atlanta so they can balance out this offense, not be super run heavy and conservative, get us passing touchdowns. And Carr would bring that at the very least.
But so, Daniel, you asked who could they trade Derek Carr to if he'd been traded to the Packers? Let's say the Packers trade doesn't happen, but the Falcons trade does happen. That would mean the Raiders need a quarterback, Stephania.
And then maybe the undecided Tom Brady ends up going to the Raiders.
I thought she was going to say Jarrett Stidham re-signed. Anyway. Former
Tom
Patriot
Brady reunites with Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
They've had some success together.
It just makes everything you've said has just been too logical today for me to have anything to offer.
I just love the idea. Tom Brady, this was not fun in Tampa. And for people who are he wants to be close to his family, so he had an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And he came back and played football. So I think Tom Brady doesn't want to end. I mean, obviously, this was a rough way to go out. There's a lot of people saying, no, he's got all the things around him in Tampa Bay. I'm like, I don't see that at all.
Yeah, did
and
you
a
watch
lot
the year this year?
Yeah.
I know, but it's weird
No, I'm
to
agreeing
me
with you.
that
I'm
some
like-
people are saying, but everything, no. I think he needs a change of scene.
Yeah.
I don't like the suggestion that he go to the Bay Area. People like he wants to come home and do. I know that is actually, I've heard from people that that's a real conversation that he could come back to the Bay Area. But if Brock does what he has the potential to do, I'm not sure that I think that really happens. I think the Raiders is a perfect landing spot for him for a short-term deal. And the Raiders like nothing if not splash.
Oh, totally. There's so much the Raiders can offer him. By the way, the Bucs just fired Byron Leftwich, their offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So, just as we were doing the show.
They did?
So,
Oh,
so
wow.
changes
That was expected.
are
yeah.
underway
but
in Tampa. But
still.
I don't like the victory lap. I think you guys know that by now. But I'm not on an island, but I was in the minority picking. I kept seeing, how can you bet against Tom Brady at home in the playoffs? And I picked the Cowboys, and I was like, that's the easiest pick of the weekend.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Did you watch
Yeah.
these two teams this
Right,
year?
right.
Like, one of them is really good. One of them
The other one's the Bucs.
was 3 miracles away from being 5-12 this year. The Bucs were terrible this season. Like, yeah, it's nice when you have Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, so it doesn't matter when you can't, like,
And
Mike Evans had one good game.
What was that in that last
By the way,
game?
Brady looked bad too.
Yeah, he did.
Brady had the end zone pick, but like he had a couple others. He got lucky. He missed. Like,
But it felt like,
yeah, it was bad.
Their being out of sync returned for
Totally.
that playoff game for
So,
sure.
anyways, a big potential offseason of change for the Bucs, and I think Brady of the Raiders. I think it is completely logical.
Yeah.
completely.
I would love
Totally.
to see him end there. I mean, he's already sort of like a villain in so many people's books, and I just feel like going to end with the Raiders, it sort of just like fits that. You know what I mean?
That's great.
Brady. I think today is the 21. Today is the 21-year anniversary of the Tuck Rule game too.
Is it really?
So of course we're talking about Brady and the Raiders on this day.
Of course.
All right, Daniel, back to a free agent signing. Where do you want
that's
Kareem
right.
Hunt to go?
I broke the rules here. I decided
Whatever.
Kareem Hunt. He just needs to not be behind Nick Chubb anymore. Can he be a starting running back in the NFL? So I decided, why not send him to the Los Angeles Rams? We know that Sean McVay is coming back. We know that Matthew Stafford is coming back. So we have Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, and now Kareem Hunt. I like as their running back. Add him to this Rams offense that desperatly, I think.
What are you doing with Cam
Honestly,
Akers?
No, he'll just be Cam Akers will be Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt continue backing up.
Cam Akers is going to be Cam Akers is going to be the number 2. I love Cam Akers. It's going to be a 2-headed committee here, but I want Kareem Hunt to be the guy ahead of Cam Akers.
Why do you think that they would do that with the way Cam Akers finished the season?
Do you know who loves Cam Akers?
Sean McVay.
Not Sean McVay, apparently.
How does he love him? He didn't wait to the final 4 games of the year to love
Yeah,
him. So you're
because
right.
they had a rough patch in their relationship.
They
They
did.
made up, and now things are like sunshine and roses.
I don't know. I'm not sure that I think they're sunshine and roses just with you end strong. That's the thing. I looked at this and I was like, where can he go as a running back? I understand. And Cam Akers is young, cheap, doesn't cost them hardly anything. I just feel like Kareem Hunt is a better player. You give Matthew Stafford a guy that can be a pass catcher and a between the tackles running back to go with Cooper Kupp, and you can actually have a way to be able to have this Rams offense moving again.
I think they're going to add a veteran there, if not a rookie. I mean, they don't have a lot of picks, so probably a veteran. But I think this makes sense. There are a lot of free agent running backs, and
Lot of them.
this is a good fit.
I think we should do a pod. Mark this down, Kyle. We should do a pod on just the free agent running back
Yeah.
class.
Oh,
And
yeah.
just
Oh,
remind
man.
people of the people that are the guys that are going to be free agents.
Can we? Mike's
Yeah, I'm
got a
like,
list.
do you want me to run off a couple
Yeah,
names?
please
just
do.
the first 6.
I'm working on my cheat
Oh my
sheet.
God,
for
how do
agent.
you even read that font?
Well, it'll be. I'm still working on it, but this will be out on Twitter soon. It's coming. But how about this? Saquon Barkley,
Yep.
Josh Jacobs,
Good.
David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, Tony Pollard, Alex Madison, Devin Singletary, Kareem Hunt, Damian Harris, Rashad Penny, Jeff Wilson, Jamal Williams, Raheem Mostert, Deontay Foreman, Samaje Perine, Jared McKinnon. That's probably a good place to stop.
Other
So
than that,
Oh
huh?
my
That's
gosh!
like 15 right there.
Oh, I
Really?
can't wait.
Right?
That is going to be fun.
Well,
All
one running back
unrestricted.
that's not a free agent, Mike, but has time
All
on
right.
his contract left, and this is where things get spicy again.
Yeah, this is a fun one. Let me
Hold on,
give
Chiefs
you a little
fans-
back. Let me
Chiefs
give you a
fans
little background.
might need to earmuff right now.
Yeah. This guy right here.
I'm all right with it.
No, Chiefs fans.
Okay, so Chiefs fans?
No, I'm
I'll
good
tell you
with
why
this.
in a second.
Okay,
I'm good
so
with
yeah, but let me give you a little
This is
background on again. People aren't really thinking about who's going to be a free agent yet, right? Especially for teams who are still alive. But Jerick McKinnon and Ronald Jones, both CEH will go into the last year of his deal. Obviously, he hasn't been working out, so it leaves you with a running back, Isaiah Pacheco, and that's it, right? We haven't really seen him used as a pass catcher yet, so there's one. Also, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mecole Hardman, even Justin Watson, who's played a lot, all free agents, right? So maybe an injection of a playmaker in the Chiefs offense could make sense, regardless of position.
When you think young playmakers, what name comes to mind?
At running back, a potential trade candidate. How about some fella by the name of DeAndre Swift?
Yeah, that's right.
Detroit Lions. We've talked
right.
about this the last couple of months. It seems like ever since Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks
honestly.
is
like,
so
you feel
true.
that way,
Yeah,
right?
the Hard
Yeah.
Knocks. I was like, this is not gonna. This ain't gonna last.
So
yeah.
I'm thinking DeAndre Swift to the Chiefs for Willie Gay Jr. The Lions have some free agents at off-ball linebacker, and that's been a problem area. We saw
Yes,
that
it
in
has.
Hard Knocks as well.
Yep.
That's a name. He's going to be entering the last year of his deal. He's basically a two-down linebacker for the Chiefs, but could be very valuable for the Lions who need to fix that defense. And I also have a 4th-round pick in here. Chiefs have 2. They got one for Tyreek Hill from the Miami Dolphins. So that's a deal I'm throwing out there. I think this is more of a fun one for sure. I think it could be realistic. We know the Chiefs will be aggressive. Andy Reid will go get skill guys. I think it makes a lot of sense as a compliment for Isaiah Pacheco. But just from a pure fantasy landscape here, this would blow up Twitter. I mean, we would love this so much.
Yeah.
It would be such a fun deal. So
it would be fun.
There's
I'm
one
here for
important thing that you just forgot. That this is the reason why I was alluding to earmuffs for Chiefs fans. DeAndre Swift was taken 2 picks after Clyde Edwards-Helaire, when everybody was saying the Chiefs, if they're going to take a running back, should just take DeAndre Swift,
Swift.
right?
Oh,
In that
wow.
2021 draft class, 2020 draft class, everybody was like, this guy is so good, so talented, right? And the Chiefs went for CEH instead.
Can we say just one more thing about Jerick McKinnon? Do you really think the Chiefs will allow him to go? I know he's a free
he's
agent.
30. He's going to be
He's
32,
older, but
33.
where is he going to go that he's going to have better opportunity
God.
and better fit than what they've done with him? He was left for dead after San Francisco because it didn't work out. He had the injury and then the setback, and people didn't think he'd be anything. Do a little pat on the back. When I saw him at Chiefs training camp that first year he was there, I was like, they're using him in red zone packages. That happened the very first year. Now it didn't transfer to what we saw in games until a little bit after that. But my goodness, that's where they used him.
Yeah, but they could re-sign him too.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. My question was, do you really think that they would move on from him? So then they would have, if they kept him, McKinnon, Pacheco, and DeAndre Swift.
I think it would just be a matter of dollars in a sense, because they have so many players that already make a lot of money, plus guys are going to have to pay a lot of money. Left tackle Orlando Brown Jr. amongst them. Like, those are the kind of discussions you have to have internally about, let's say Jerick McKinnon gets
Budget.
$5 or $6 million per year from somebody in what is probably the last contract of his career for a lot of money. Can you afford to do that when, well, nobody got as hot as Jerick McKinnon got at the end of this year? Like, before Jerick McKinnon, there was Damian Williams, right, who caught lightning in a bottle for the Chiefs. So they may say, hey, we can find the next version of this player on a minimum contract rather than allocating $5 to $6 million. Whereas if we get pinched and we can't afford to keep Orlando Brown Jr. somehow, all of a sudden we go from a guy who keeps making the Pro Bowl to a guy who really shouldn't be in the NFL. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, and by the way, and you could comment on this too, like from a Lions perspective, Jamal Williams is a free agent. You could see him coming back on maybe a 1 or 2 year deal, but they were committed to multiple backs, right? Even Justin Jackson and at times Craig Reynolds from Kutztown was involved, but they really like Jackson. He's a free agent. They could bring him back as well. Very cheap. And they have a lot of draft picks. There's some chatter about maybe them selecting someone on day 1 or 2. So there's ways to kind of solve that position and move on from a guy that
Don't do it on day 1, please.
doesn't I agree with you.
Not a first round pick.
I agree with you, but they might say, look, we have this great offensive line and, you know, Jared Goff's a good quarterback. We have the receivers. You know, they can. Yeah, I've heard that. I've seen that speculation. That's why I'm thinking it is a possibility. But I could totally see them moving on from Swifter.
I don't. So I love the idea. I'm assuming we move on from Swift. You're re-signing Jamal Williams, and I think re-signing Jamal Williams. I don't want to say he's a foregone conclusion, but he's such a great fit for this team.
Also from Hard Knocks, very obvious. Like,
I love that, man.
I think
heartbeat of the Lions.
Absolutely.
I think he is the spirit leader of the Lions.
So you do that, and you go out and you grab a guy like Bijan Robinson. The problem is, I don't think he's going to last till the middle of the second round, where the Lions have where I would want him to go. Which means if you want to grab him, you got to go. That first round pick.
I go much higher.
Or you
love that.
go with one of these other free agents.
Exactly.
Because there's so many.
A lot of guys to talk about.
What did Jamal Williams introduce himself as?
First
something Swage Kage or something like that. People are gonna be like, the people that are like actually like fans of anime are gonna be like, you idiot. Which, trust me, I am an idiot.
He was great though.
He is the man though. He
Yeah.
cracked me up when I heard that.
All right, we're gonna have our good friend Liz join us here in just a second. But first, Field Yates, why don't you help pay Mike Clay's enormous salary?
Oh, okay. Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance? Of course you would. When it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help, like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV, even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use mobile app, available 24-hour roadside assistance, and more. And Geico is an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
You know, from holiday gatherings and office parties to fireside conversations in the NFL playoffs, winter means more moments with the coolest people in your life. Make these moments even better with Miller Lite, the great tasting light beer for people who love beer. A new year is perfect time for friends, family, and great tasting light beer, so that means it's Miller time. During Super Wildcard Weekend, did you take a sip and look around at your friends and think, yeah, this was the right call? I'll bet you did. Miller Lite is a high in taste and low in calories, making it the perfect light beer for everyone. Dependable flavor means your beer tastes like beer. Since 1975, Miller Lite has been the beer with taste you can depend on. No games, no gimmicks, just a great beer for people who like beer. The right balance between taste and lightness means you get to spend more time drinking with your friends and less time thinking about what you're drinking. Because when you're out there to have a good time, you'll reach for a beer that's reliable. All right, Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/FFF to find delivery options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. It's Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. All right, and Liz Loza joins us now. Liz, how you doing all the way over there in California?
I am wonderful, Daniel. So good to see you and talk to you.
It is good to see you as well. For those that wonder, the last fantasy improv column that Liz and I did is up now. If you want to go check that out, it was a ton of fun to be able to do that column with you all year, Liz. I just want to say that before we get started, because we're going to talk about another column that you also do called the Props That Pop. I'm really excited about this, but before we get into that, before we give everybody a little bit of money, we're going to talk about some of the trade talks that we talked about. We just went through a bunch of trade options that we liked, some people that we thought maybe could move places, and I see here that you have one of the running backs that I was very high on coming into this season. I would love to see him be on another team. Tell me what you see A.J. Dillon going.
I don't think he goes anyplace because while Mike listed off all of the free agent running backs, he did not mention Aaron Jones, and that's because Aaron Jones is technically not a free agent. However, when you look at the cap situation in Green Bay, you realize that the Packers, well, it's sticky for them. And if they release Aaron Jones, they could save $16 million in cap space. Now, there's another team in Miami that does have a need at running back because Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson were both on one-year deals. So Aaron Jones can land in Miami, perhaps be a safety valve, which we've seen him work successfully as for the entirety of his career, to a quarterback that might need, let's just say, a safety valve. Obviously, in a Shanahan-esque friendly system, which would then, and if you're asking what the Packers would get in exchange, they're going to get Mike Gesicki, because he only signed a one-year deal, a one-year extension. So he also is a free agent. And as Mike mentioned, Tonyan and Lewis, both free agents in Green Bay. Now, it's not a perfect trade. I'm sure there's going to be some picks. Probably the Packers need to prioritize safety ahead of tight end. But if this is fantasy, Aaron Jones to Miami, Mike Gesicki to the Packers. The good part, though, that you were leading with is that A.J. Dillon is then freed up to be the workhorse that we love and need him to be. He averaged 4.9 yards per touch, and he cleared over 5 yards on nearly 40% of his carries. I think that's what you want more of, right?
That's pretty good. I think if you have your running back doing that, you're usually pretty happy with that, Liz. I have been just the idea that A.J. Dillon just doesn't get more opportunities because there's someone that's so good in front of him, and Aaron Jones, it's not his fault, but please, let's just get a situation where this guy can be the lead back on a team, Liz. I am totally with you. I would love to have A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones be free of each other so they can both be the incredible running backs that we know that they are. It'll be super fun for fantasy, actually. All right, let's talk props that pop, the column that you write, and you continue to write now, correct, through the playoffs.
Yes. Yeah, I did not know I was going to be, but hey, here I am, and it is a new beast. I have to be honest, like week 18, I was like, oh, this is a little bit more difficult. And now heading into the playoffs, you are leaning in or making choices about game script that just aren't necessarily always in line with data because the stakes are at a different level. And so 2 props that I'm very excited about come from the first game, the Jacksonville at Kansas City game, and they involve both of the running backs. I want to start with Travis Etienne. Now, he's only had one catch for 12 yards. He only had one catch for 12 yards in that comeback win against the Chargers last week. And, there have been some, I think, justifiable complaints that he hasn't been used as a pass catcher nearly as much, or nearly as much as fantasy managers expected, given his role in college and his rapport with Trevor Lawrence. But I just feel like he is going to hit the over on 17.5 receiving yards. That is low enough for me to believe, particularly when you have to imagine that the Jaguars are going to be playing catch up and that Trevor Lawrence ranks 8th in accuracy on balls thrown under 10 yards. He's only 26th on balls over 10 yards. Obviously, Etienne would work in that short passing game. Furthermore, Kansas City has allowed the 4th most receiving yards to opposing running backs over the 22 regular season, and that's an average of 45.6 receiving yards per game to opposing running backs. So can I get 18 out of Etienne in this matchup? I sure think I can.
I think you can too. And game script, like you're saying, I think it really plays into this, regardless of the fact that only one catch in that come from behind victory, which just an incredible, the fact that that team was able to come back after Trevor Lawrence threw 4 interceptions. And he only had one catch for 12 yards in that also is a little bit of a thing. But all the things that you're saying makes a ton of sense. 17.5 receiving yards. You're taking the over on that. I realize you have another one, but if people want to go and they want to read through this or they want to look at this, where can they find your Props at Pop column?
Well, it's going to publish on the website now that there are games on Saturdays every Friday. So it'll be out tomorrow.
On .com. All right. Love it. And then you said there was a second running back that you also really liked outside of Travis Etienne that we should be looking at.
Yep, same matchup. You guys talked about Jerick McKinnon and how he's come on so strong over this last stretch of the regular season. Well, I don't think it stops. Now, Travis Etienne's receiving prop is at 17.5 yards, a little bit higher for Jerick McKinnon. It's at 34.5, but I still feel confident that McKinnon can hit it. He's went over his receiving prop 66.7% of the time for a position best 9th. So he is 9th in terms of over on receiving yards, and he's done that over nearly 67% of the time. So the odds are that he's going to clear this. 9 times this season has a running back gone over 30 yards versus Jacksonville, and 6 times they've gone over 40. That's because the Jacksonville Jaguars are just slightly more generous than the Chiefs when it comes to opposing running backs in the passing game. Jacksonville has allowed the 3rd most receiving yards to opposing running backs on the season, just ahead of Kansas City, giving up 46.3 receiving yards per game to opposing running backs. McKinnon at 35, it's tight, but I like it.
I like it too. I love going with both of these running backs, Liz. It's something I feel like I can live within this and feel confident with. I think, what time is it? We got time for one more. Let's say we got time for one more. Do you have any other bonus props that we can give to people? We're going to say we're just going to push this just a little bit longer.
I'm going to stick with the same matchup, the Jacksonville at Kansas City game. And I'm going to talk about Trevor Lawrence over 15.5 rushing yards. Kansas City has allowed the 5th most rushing yards on the season to opposing quarterbacks. Now, Trevor Lawrence has mobility. It's always been part of his game. He's not the rusher that Justin Fields is per se, but he does like to use his legs. And you have to imagine that Spags is going to dial up that blitz. We see it all the time, right? Which causes a running back to run more. And while Marvin Jones and Christian Kirk and Zay Jones have been incredible finds and really, they're playoff contending receivers, they're not elite separators, right? So I think that means that Lawrence is going to have to put the game on his shoulders a bit more and use those legs. So do I think he can clear 15.5? I do. He's cleared the over on a rushing prop specifically 56.3% of the time. So if you're looking for a bonus, I would stick with Trevor Lawrence on the rushing prop.
All right. Love that. Thank you so much, Liz. Props that pop. Go check that out. The article will come out on Friday on .com. It's for the Saturday and Sunday slate for all the division round playoffs. Liz, really quickly, the Chicago Bears, we went through and talked about a bunch of different trades, obviously, earlier on in the show. You just also talked about Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. If your Chicago Bears were to make a trade, what position do they need to bring in to be able to help fortify that team for you in this offseason? And I realize it's more than just one, but if you're going to make a trade, what one trade would you want to see your team, the Chicago Bears, make?
I think the popular answer from a fantasy analyst would be wide receiver, obviously. But as someone who grew up in Chicago and understands the ministers of defense that this team is and the culture around it in the city, I think I need to trust Eberflus, who I believe to be a defensive genius, to rework the defense, which he clearly has been paring down. So I would like to see him start actually on the defensive side of the ball, given the tradition of the team.
I like that, Liz. We got to replace what Roquan Smith, unfortunately, has left there. There's a big hole because of that. But there's a lot of places you guys can go with that number 1 overall pick. You got a lot of options. We will talk about it a bunch this offseason. I'm sure that we will have a lot to be able to talk about when it comes to the Bears and the Lions when it comes to the draft. But thank you so much for hanging out with us today. That's going to do it for the show. Thank you so much to Field and Stephania and Mike Clay, as well to Liz and Kyle and everybody else that's in the background, behind the scenes, working on the show. We love you guys. Don't forget to love each other. Please be kind to yourself. CSS DFS is coming up next, and we will see you next week. See ya.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.